Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to Crossing the River, a podcast that amplifies the voices of Indigenous leaders from around the world. In each episode, they share their wisdom, experiences, and urgent advice for a world in crisis. Before we begin, know that Crossing the River takes a deliberate and distinctive approach to translation. You will hear the voices of Indigenous leaders directly. This is an invitation to listen deeply, to feel their message in their own words, and to pay attention to meaning beyond language, embracing the power behind their voices. This is an invitation to cross the river. Crossing the River is produced by the More Than Human Life Moth Project, based at the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice at NYU School of Law and 070 Podcast.
I'm Christine Kandie. I'm from Kenya. I'm one of the leaders for indigenous communities here in Kenya.
It's November 2024. Christine Kandie answers our call in what looks like a white-walled office. It's 5 p.m. in Kenya. She has kind eyes and wears her hair braided, cascading down her shoulders. She speaks with confidence, her attention and presence overcoming the distance of our conversation.
I'm also a leader in my community, that is Endorois Indigenous People. I am also Executive Director of Endorois Indigenous Women Empowerment Network. I am a woman leader. I'm a woman leader with disabilities. Being a woman is not easy. And government fighting us, causing a lot of emotional trauma.
In 1973, the Endorois people of Kenya were dispossessed of their ancestral land. The Kenyan government argued that the Endorois were not a distinct indigenous community, so therefore they had no rights to the land they have inhabited for generations.
Like, for example, when we want self-identify ourselves as Endorois, if you say you are Endorois, somebody will say, no, but you are not Endorois, you are so and so. But at some point we tell them, why do you want to argue when I self-identify myself? And that is, we are a community, we are different, we have culture, we have language, we have way of life, we have, our own land. We are very proud community of ourselves, our territorial. We have our trees, our naming, our animals, wild animals, and all that.
While others tried to deny their existence as indigenous peoples, the Endorois have pushed back, and they are strong.
Being a woman from this, meaning you have an added responsibility of endured resilience. A resilience that you didn't give up. When government was saying that you've leave this place and no one should come back again. When government, killed our brothers and sisters, we had to be very strong. And you realize that an Endorois woman was able to continue again for progression. We outlived all challenges that was in our land. Lake Bogoria is a beautiful land. We have termed it as a beautiful, slender lake found in Rift Valley province. It is a home to wild animals. It is an ancestral home to Endorois community. It is a slender, salty water lake found in Rift Valley in Kenya. It sits between two hills.
The Endorois are an agro-pastoralist society of approximately 60,000 members who have lived for centuries in Kenya's Rift Valley province, a former province bordering Uganda. Traditionally, they relied on livestock such as cattle, goats, and sheep, alongside practices like beekeeping to sustain their livelihoods. The Endorois recognize Lake Bogoria as their ancestral land. It is a saline lake with a pink residue, where over 2 million flamingos migrate to feed and reproduce every year. The lake is big, about the size of Manhattan, surrounded by acacia and fig trees. A lake thought to have medicinal properties. But for the Endorois, it's more than just a body of water.
Our relationship to the lake is like the relationship we had between the mother and the and child in the womb.
A bond with the lake like that between a mother and the child in her womb, vital, intimate, life-giving. A relationship that when broken has deep repercussions.
We've used it for one of the heritage for our community. It has a very strong culture and values in terms of holding our traditional values, language, and food system. We have a number of trees that are very important in our ceremonials as a community. We have salty licks for our animals, and when government blocked us from accessing those very important things for our use, for our sustainability, for our livelihood, and for the generation. Our life become very, unbearable at some point.
Christine was born 10 years after her people got evicted. She belongs to that first generation of Endorois peoples who grew up in exile, listening to the stories of her land. Her grandmothers and grandfathers have told her what happened many times. This is what she remembers.
It was one morning, one paramount chief came to where our fathers live and told them that you need to leave the place because it is very unlawful for you to live again here. This area has been used by the government. This area is for the government, and it has been gazetted. And because it is the government, you need to go away and live somewhere else. It became very difficult, and anybody who did not comply with those orders from the government, houses were torched. Even with animals, even with people, even with children sleeping in those houses were torched.
When Christine says gazetted, she means that by law, the land now belonged to the government, leaving the Endorois with no legal claim to their ancestral home.
If you move away, if you are lucky to escape with your animals, because government military officers were coming there, raided homestead, torching some of them, you are being beaten, but we have not committed any crime. We've been living there since. And one morning, things start changing all of a sudden because President of Kenya toured Lake Bogoria and found out Lake Bogoria to be a very beautiful lake. And he just made a decision and announced that from tomorrow going forward, people should forget who are living in this homestead. That is how life became.
In 1978, the area was rebranded as Lake Bogoria Game Reserve, a reserve for tourism, a safari. This happened without any consultation with the Endorois community. Those who resisted faced violent repression, with people being forced to flee with whatever they could carry.
You are told to forget the place. So we forget this place when animals could come back because they knew that was home. So these animals, when they get there, they are owned by the government officers, agencies. And if they are old, you are not allowed to take them back because it was a way to punish us and to ensure that no one was coming back to that land. That land was supposed to be taken back by the government, and we were not allowed to complain.
They were told they had to forget their own land and leave everything behind: their homes, their animals, their livelihood.
It holds a very important, it holds a very important significance in our heart. This is the land that we only know. We didn't know any other land. And again, now we are evicted. It is very traumatizing. And really sorry, I need like 5 minutes, 1 minute break because of this. Because connecting with a struggle, painful experience is not very easy. We are a community that even we have taken the issue to African Commission. The government has agreed. Again, we are still struggling. They are talking, they are going through back and forth. We have never rested. People have, out of this dedication, out of this passionate, people are being arrested even at this moment. Life here in Kenya is very difficult with this education system and many other. You need to get money to feed your community. Government took away your livelihood. You don't have any land, and land is a factor of production. So you are there. You are destitute. You are suffering all along. So that is all about it. And I'm happy that out of the education that we got from our parents, we continue with this struggle. We will not rest until justice is served to Endorois community. Thank you. I'm almost turning 40 years. Yeah, so I'm 39. And so what it means to be a woman leader and again, woman with disability, it takes courage to serve at a space. How I grew my leadership started way back, like 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago when I was still a young child in my indigenous community, whereby, going to school was really optional for us.
Christine, as a young girl, was prepared to take on the responsibilities her culture prescribed, marry, become a caregiver, and continue the traditions of her people. But then her life changed.
When I was 10 years old, I got sick. I remember I was still in my lower primary school education. So at that level, one day, one morning, things start changing so differently all of a sudden. I got sick when I was young, and this sickness gave me a disability. So my disability gave me an opportunity to go to school as a woman, which was not, granted in my community. It was, a girl child could be married like any other person. And for me, life was a little bit very difficult. I could not, play that role of being married over being a woman.
Christina attributes her illness to the displacement, to that deep rupture between her peoples and their territory, that body of water that, like a womb, contained them.
The reason why I got sick is because the Endorois community were evicted from their ancestral land, that is Lake Bogoria. We tried to access the land again for medicinal reasons. We accessed the land for spiritual reasons and many other things that could connect us stronger as a community.
But since the eviction, the government hasn't allowed the Endorois to come back to their land.
I went to a school that they have never seen a person with disabilities. I had walked for like 10 kilometers to get into school. I am using crutches, walking my way out to the school. I could not relent. I developed a lot of strength. I developed a lot of positivity. And I didn't like, people would say, because always people could sit down and judge. But for me, they tell you that you cannot do this. And I would ask myself, why why can I not do that? And they say, because you don't have the ability. And I would ask them, what is the ability that needs me to do that same work? I did not allow any challenge to define my path.
A few years after completing her studies, Christine joined one of the organizations that would lead the struggle for the Endorois people's rights, the Endorois Welfare Council.
So I finished my education way back in 2007 after graduating it, and I joined Endorois Welfare Council. So with the Endorois Welfare Council, I joined in 2010, and I became the journey of leadership for my community. I remember my first intervention in 2011, when I was speaking about the struggle that the community had, what the government has not implemented. I was the only person to speak at that time that had attracted the intervention of the chairperson. So you can see, because when I do the thing, I do with a lot of passion.
The first eviction of the Endorois by the government in 1973 marked the beginning of an ongoing struggle, a struggle against the forces that sought to exploit the land.
It was a way to, to have the land for profit, forgetting the people. It started there, and we are still struggling with all this.
After failing to achieve a resolution at the national level, the Endorois community, with the support of minority rights groups, escalated their case to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, a body established by the African Union to promote and protect human and indigenous people's rights across the continent.
Part of the African Commission decision was about identity.
An issue about identity. It was an issue about invisibilization.
And we have negotiated this with the government of Kenya to identify and accord us registration as a unique tribal, an issued tribal code for our community, because that is one of the ruling from African Commission.
In 2010, 7 years later, the African Commission announced a verdict. It concluded that the Endorois are an indigenous people and that the Kenyan government's eviction from their ancestral lands was illegal. The commission stated that lack of consultation with the community, the restrictions on access to the land, and the inadequate involvement in the process of developing the region for use as a tourist game reserve had violated the community's right to development.
It is about also restitution. And I think because the issue of land use, this is something that the department concerned could just come with us, we sit together, and we decide how that restitution should be used. How could it be instead be paid royalties? Because currently the land has been used for tourism reasons.
The African Commission's decision set an important precedent for the rights of indigenous peoples and the recognition of their unique connection to ancestral territories, as well as their right to preserve their identity through this connection. In line with this, the Commission recommended that the Kenyan government recognize the Endorois' right of ownership and return their ancestral lands. It also urged the government to compensate them for their losses and ensure the community has unrestricted access to Lake Bogoria, along with a fair share of royalties and employment opportunities from the reserve. However, Minority Rights Group has reported that these recommendations have yet to be implemented.
We know there are parts that Endorois community occupied, and we need to restitute it back to that land. Like, for example, we need also to be paid for the loss we suffered as a community, because African Commission has provided that. But the government has never given us opportunity or even listened to us.
The landmark 2010 decision by the African Commission set a historic precedent for the recognition of indigenous rights in Africa, a monumental step in a continent still grappling with the aftermath of colonialism and the erasure of its indigenous peoples and cultures. With leaders like Christine, the Endorois are paving the way for others to gain recognition for the strength and significance of their culture.
The litigation that we've had from the different levels at the national level, at regional level, and even at the international framework. So how it feels so nice. And that is the day we've been looking for. It feels like, we need to celebrate ourselves.
The Endorois case set a historic precedent for indigenous rights in Africa. But as a leader, Christine realized that even within the Endorois community, some voices were heard less than others.
So later on in 2016, we sat as Endorois women because our voices were missing in most of the development actors taking place within my community. So when these voices were missing, we start now figuring out how do we come back as women? How do we position ourselves better for other opportunities, not only for community, even to start speaking about some of the unspoken voices, like voices of people with disability.
This was the moment when Christine and other women founded the Endorois Indigenous Women Empowerment Network. to encourage women to use their voices, stay informed, and understand the struggle, making them integral and active participants in the movement.
We are ensuring that our struggle does not end with us. We are also preparing a younger generation to take up the leadership. By preparing, it needs a leadership role. So Endorois Indigenous Women Empowerment Network, IWEN, also is an expert in intersectionality. We are speaking about sexual minorities. We are speaking about things that could not be spoken with any other Indigenous organization. So we bring in people who have been left behind.
The organization develops inclusive solutions that benefit everyone in the community.
Women play a very important role in knowledge holding. The issues of control, protection, and sustainable use of natural resources. So all those things happen because we have created an apparatus, or rather an area that we all of us meet, share, and discuss about our struggle. We also ensure that us as our women have also a role in terms of pushing for the government of Kenya to implement all those decisions provided by African Commission. One of it was even about acquainting ourselves, educating our women, start discussing what African Commission decision look like.
The struggle of the Endorois people didn't end with the African Commission's decision. Years have passed, and the Kenyan government has yet to fully respect or implement the rights they were promised. But the fight isn't just about the past. Today, they face a new challenge: the impact of climate change on their ancestral territory, a threat that puts their way of life at risk.
We have started talking about forceful eviction by the government of Kenya, but now we are also experiencing about forceful eviction because of climate change, because of the rising water level. Of course, we have attributed climate change to human action, and part of it is deforestation, cutting of trees and livestock, and the land becoming bare, and the issues of running water downstreams, carrying a lot of soil deposits. All these as causes are very unbearable consequences and loss to human and to the environment, to the mother nature.
Climate change has caused the water levels of Great Rift Valley lakes, including Lake Bogoria, to rise, leading to an ongoing flooding in areas occupied by the Endorois community since 2014. This flooding has worsened each year. In addition, recurring droughts have made pastoralist communities more vulnerable.
And we know also that women and people with disabilities are the most impacted because of their adaptive capacities. We have the low response level. So meaning, in case of any disasters, we are equally impacted. How do we prepare those people to ensure that in their response, they're able to cope up with any eventuality that comes?
So, Christine and the network of women leaders are actively seeking strategies to face these challenges. For example, by training women and people with disabilities to be a part of the early warning system in natural disasters.
We've been given this leadership. We've been, again, as a women-led organization, we felt that instead of, we also have responsibility of the struggle. We need also to empower our women to know their rights, to build their leadership.
As a leader, a woman, and a person with disability, Christine uses her voice to unite and raise awareness, emphasizing the interconnectedness of struggles. She can see beyond her own people's struggle and recognize the intersections where many Indigenous peoples meet. Christine believes in the power of the collective.
So we need to solidify our voice, learn about one another's struggle, represent the missing voices in spaces that we also ensure that there is that consistency, that we represent those missing spaces. The voices of Indigenous people should be getting louder and louder every now and then, and it should be very deafening so that government of Kenya or the governments could listen to. It causes a lot of discomfort to them. we should also continue building those voices. We support, learn from one another, encourage one another, because the moment you allow peer to peer, it's also a healing to them. It can be a very, immediate remedy than waiting for the other bigger one. So we can start building small in terms of sharing experience, getting to know what is happening, and community meeting, because all of us are working in isolation.
While others tried to deny their existence as Indigenous peoples, the Endorois have pushed back, and their voices are just getting louder.
But again, we've tried our best to solidify our struggle as a community. We understand our community, and we still continue with this fight. Thank you.
Crossing the River is a podcast from the More Than Human Life program Moth, based at the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice at NYU School of Law and 070 Podcast. Thank you to Christine Kandie for sharing your story and struggle with all of us. This episode was co-created by Carlos Andrés Vaquero Diaz from Moth, Natalia Arenas, and me, Goldie Levy. The sound design and mix was made by Andrés Villegas. The images of this podcast are made by Nefasta. The music is from Cosmo Sheldrake. If you want to learn more about this project, please visit mothlife.org. Thank you for listening.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.